Hello and welcome to Never Leave an SAP HANA Database Unprotected Again. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. Let's talk questions. We want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. We won't be able to do a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this one, but we will pass along any questions you have to the team from Rubrik for follow-up. The Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Okay, next, handouts. In the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. I'd especially like to call your attention to a ton of resources from Rubrik. There's a link to an on-demand database recovery summit. There's a link to Rubrik Explore. We have a database ebook, and we have a database protection for dummies book. Also in there are some links labeled ATM, which stands for Actual Tech Media. One of those is the ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers that you can apply to join to participate in some more in-depth events and other opportunities. Also, there's a link to the ATM Event Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events like this one. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, I'm sure you noticed the prize icon there. At the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find that link there. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today from Rubrik. We have Justin Ruiz, who's Senior Product Marketing Manager, and we have Chris Lumna, who's Database Solutions Architect. So now I'm going to turn things over to the Rubrik team to get us started.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our webinar on Never Leave Your SAP HANA Database Unprotected Again. It's great to have all of you here with us today. Thank you. Well, as you know, your business runs on data, and databases help make your most critical data in your businesses useful. So securing this data is essential to your organization's business reliance. And so today, we're excited to share with you how Rubrik keeps your databases and business running in the face of any threat. We'll start by taking a quick look at the current landscape, exploring the key challenges database teams face related to database protection. We'll look at the required capabilities database teams need to prioritize to keep their database data resilient as a result, before finally showing you how Rubrik addresses each of these requirements and how we can help. And last but not least, we'll close things out with additional resources that I think you might find useful. So it's a pretty packed agenda for today, so let's dive in. As you already know, your database powers applications that run your businesses. That means if your databases are down, your business is probably down as well. In our first report from Rubrik Zero Labs, the state of database security, 98% of organizations reported experiencing a cyber attack, which means your organization has most likely experienced one of these at some point. It has never been more critical for organizations to get their databases protected and quickly and recoverable to ensure that your businesses can be brought back on quickly. However, this is easier said than done. The DBA's job is more difficult now than ever before, and it only promises to get more challenging as the volume, variety, and complexity of applications and data increases across the cloud and data center. What you see on the screen is a common database environment. You have production databases, backup, storage, copies, or restores, but these approaches to backup and recovery leave database vulnerable. They create silos, and they make it difficult for database admins, IT admins, and SecOps to work together to meet business objectives and protect data. DBAs are not only having to manage hundreds or even thousands of databases, jobs, backups, and all the other ancillary systems that make common tasks and administration possible, but now they have to increasingly worry about ransomware and other cyber attacks. And as we know, the goal of a ransomware is to deny you access to your own data. And what is a DBA in charge of? Databases and the data contained within them. When ransomware attacks a database and the database's backups, it is a very bad day to be a DBA. Your business needs to respond faster and analyze more to be competitive. This results in applications needing more specialized databases for every use case. Gartner estimates that enterprises spending on database doubled from 2017 to today, from $38.6 billion to just shy of $80 billion today. A typical enterprise today uses legacy databases for legacy applications, and a variety of cloud and on-premise databases for analytics, in-memory databases for demanding applications, document databases to power dynamic applications, and so on. Each of these databases have their own tools for backups and restore, along with different business SLAs. Dealing with this complexity is expensive. It creates silos, increases the risk of the critical data that will be left unprotected. On top of that, there is no global catalog, making reporting and other administration tasks manual. This makes visibility very difficult. To make matters worse, data volumes are growing fast, driven by transaction volumes as well as needing to use richer data in applications. A report sponsored by Seagate and conducted by the IDC estimated that enterprise data collection has increased by 42% over the last 2 years, jumping from a total enterprise data volume of 1 petabyte in 2020 to a total enterprise data volume of approximately 2.02 petabytes in 2022. The growth in data collection can be attributed to the increasing use of analytics, cloud migration initiatives, and the proliferation of IoT devices. For example, retailers now track more data about each customer. At the same time, backup windows have remained the same or have shortened, driven by the need for higher availability. This means that backing up data and making it available for testing, refreshes, operational recoveries often exceed desired SLAs. But what we find is that most of the time organizations are unable to rapidly recover what they need when they need it. For example, recovering specific tables or specific sets of rows when needed. Legacy tools are often limited to all or nothing recovery methods that take a lot of time. This adds additional operational risk and is much slower than desired by the business. But what we find is that most of the time organizations are unable to rapidly recover what they need when they need it. For example, recovering specific tables or specific sets of rows when needed. Legacy tools are often limited to all or nothing recovery methods that take a lot of time. This adds additional operational risk and is much slower than desired by the business. All of these challenges are compounded as you add more databases. And as we have already touched upon, and as you already know, not uncommon for an enterprise to have multiple database engines running. Everything from Microsoft SQL to DB2 to Oracle to SAP HANA, as well as some of the open source database platforms like Postgres or MySQL, and as well as some of the cloud database platforms like AWS or Azure SQL. Together, all of these challenges are having a huge impact on organizations. And we see it in the questions database teams are asking us. Questions like, how do I automate my database protection? How do I simplify the complex tasks? How do I back up and recover what I need when I need it? And how do I keep my databases secure and available? So let's talk about Rubrik for SAP HANA and how it can help. Rubrik Security Cloud is the single pane of glass which will handle automatic discovery of your databases, as well as automatic protection of newly discovered databases in your environment, and enable them to be backed up automatically without having to reconfigure Rubrik in any way once it's done. All the protection is done through an SLA management. And SLAs are just declarative rule sets that answer some basic questions about your protection. How often should it be backed up? How long should it be kept around for? And if we should archive it or replicate it to another data center or not. From a supportability perspective, we're going to support scale up and scale out systems. Doesn't matter if it's just a traditional giant SAP HANA box, or if you have multiple boxes that support that one environment. If you have high frequency log backups, that's not a problem for us either, because everything that we do with SAP HANA is actually all going to be done through the SAP HANA backend API toolset. And this means that it's fully certified by SAP HANA, so this way when the backups are kicked off on the SAP HANA side, they're using, whether it's single channel or multi-channel, all done through secure thrift over to the Rubrik storage. Basis admins maintain control of their environment in that if they need to add more channels, all they do is they make a change to their config file and then Rubrik automatically adjusts to that request. All the backups are now written onto the immutable file system of Rubrik, so this way, in case ransomware were to attack you, your backups are going to remain safe. Okay, let's jump into a demo to see how things look. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to Rubrik Security Cloud. Now here, when you first log in, you're going to be presented with a dashboard which shows you what's going on in your environment. I prefer to jump right into my inventory, specifically to the environments that I manage. Because when I need to do things, I need to jump right into whatever I want to do, not have to waste clicks by going from the dashboard into my inventory into a specific database. I want to go right in right away and start working and start doing recoveries. So, like I said, everything is first covered or handled by SLA domains. So let's first jump here to SLA domains. And I'm going to create an SLA domain here. And as you can see, we cover a lot of different things, from all these different databases here, to physical hosts, to cloud environments. There's a lot of different objects that we can back up in our environment. We're going to cover right now just SAP HANA, but if you have further questions about other types of objects, we can always talk about that in a different session. So, first thing is this main page here. This first page is all about how often you want to do a full backup of SAP HANA. Typically, we see customers do backups once a day. Or they might do, in some cases, they might do a backup once a week. In which case, they'll do, let's say, a backup on a Saturday. And they'll keep that around for, let's say, 5 weeks. And then, if we did nothing else here, Rubrik would handle the when for the time this backup was done automatically based on some intelligence on what's going on in the environment on the Rubrik side as well as on the SAP HANA side, and it will go ahead and start taking that backup for you. Now, in this case, backups would start around midnight. Unless something was going on and we couldn't do the backup at that time, we'd push it off to sometime later in the day. But if you need control over when this backup happens, so let's say you actually don't want this backup to happen at midnight, you want this backup to happen at 10 p.m. Well, that's when the snapshot window comes into play. And here we're saying, I want my backup window to start at 10 p.m. and I don't want it to go beyond 11 p.m. Now, this means that the backup will start during this period of time. If it's still running come 11 o'clock, it will run to completion. But if for whatever reason we could not start the backup inside of this time frame, then that backup would now, or that database would now be part of your non-compliance report because we couldn't run the backup during that time frame. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go to the next page, and we're going to talk about archiving. Now, in this case, we're only keeping things around for 5 days, but if you had a longer retention period, you could definitely keep, let's say, 14 days local, and everything older than 14 days would go to your archive bucket in whether it be one of the public or private cloud providers. Replication is also enabled here, where you can send the copy of this backup over to another data center, and maybe you only want to keep around the last 7 days worth of backups on the other target. Well, you keep everything local, but at least you have the last 7 days in that other target. And that other target is just simply picking a different data center and where you have a Rubrik cluster. So maybe I want to send this stuff to Detroit. The next page is about your incrementals and differentials in your log backups. Now, log backups are handled automatically by SAP HANA. There's no frequency for that. That's done automatically by HANA. The basis admin has the ability to set a time, but SAP HANA will also dump out to a log backup if it feels it needs to before that time frame happens. So you'll pick a time here and how long you want to keep that log backup around for. So let's say you want to keep it around for 14 days. Your fulls will be kept for 35. Your log backups will be kept for 14. Your incremental backups, like how often do you want to do that? Maybe you want to keep that around for every day, and maybe your differentials you want to do every 3 days. So this way you can reduce your recovery time when you need it, like later in the week. Retention lock is going to be for preventing accidentally, whether it's accidental or maliciously modified or deleted during the retention period. You can enable this if you need to. We won't enable this right now. And then you just give your SLA domain a name, you'll give it a description, and you'll hit create. And that'll create that backup rule set to be used for your environment. Now, from an application perspective, all we're going to do is come into our data center, go down to the SAP HANA section, and you'll see that we have some systems already set up here. The way that you set these systems up is first you have to add the Linux host by installing the Rubrik backup agent on the Linux host. Super simple to do. You'll do that, and then you'll register the Linux host inside of Rubrik. From there, you'll hit Add System. You'll give it a system ID. Now, this is your HANA system ID. So in my case, I have systems called XE1, XE2, XE3, XE4. You'll give it your instance number. So in my case, my instance number was 9. So 90, so I'll put that in there. And then I'll choose the hosts that are associated to this system. So I'll come down here, I'll do SH1, HANA, and I'll pick this guy here. Now, if this is just a traditional scale-up environment, great. I don't have to do anything more. I'm done. But if this is a scale-out environment where I have multiple servers that make up this system, then all I have to do is come in here and add the second box. That's simple. Now Rubrik knows that these two hosts are part of this one system, and if there's a failover from 1 to 2, Rubrik would automatically discover it and start backing up on server 2 versus server 1, and you'd be all set in that case. And if there was a fail back to server 1, Rubrik would understand it and start backing up over there as well. Rubrik has the ability to do, from an authentication perspective, you can either provide as a user ID and password. Permissions, by the way, are only what's required on this screen here. Database admin, any file admin, backup admin, and catalog read permissions. That is it. We do not need full system permissions. Or you can also use the HTTP user store key and put that in as well. If you want to use SSL encryption, you can enable that and put in the appropriate values here, and then we can connect through SSL to your SAP HANA environment. Once you add your host, Rubrik will go through and discover how many databases you have on that box. In this case, we have this XE1 environment. This is the host. It's got 2 databases on it. So if I click into this, you'll see I have the system database and I have the XE1 database. From a SLA protection perspective, if I want to assign an SLA to this system, all I have to do, check the box, hit Manage Protection, type in my SLA, hit Next, hit Assign, and I'm done. Now, Rubrik from this point forward will start protecting this system and every database on this system with the SLA domain that I just applied. If I add databases to the XE1 system, Rubrik will discover that and automatically protect that database with the permission or with the SLA domain that I assigned here. If I jump into this particular system and I pick my system database for a second, you can see the backups that I have in this environment. And if I go through here, I have some information about the environment over here, like my log backup interval, which is picked up from the SAP HANA system. And then I can see the backups that I have here. The check mark means I have either a snapshot or a full backup or a incremental or a differential backup. And the line across the day means I have log backup, so point in time recoverability. So if I click on the 24th, I can see that I have recoverability for that entire day. So great. You can see here we have, in this case, because of the earlier backups that were taken, we have a bunch of different snapshots that were taken throughout the time frame. So we have some incremental backups along the way, and we can see that log backups were done, fulls, incrementals, all throughout the day on this environment. Now, you'll notice too, I have the ability to take an on-demand backup. This means I can, right from Rubrik, initiate a backup of this database. And I'll kick one off here. And we'll see this one kick off in a couple minutes. I'll go to the events page here and we'll see the event pop up here in a second or two. This allows me from the Rubrik side to be able to kick off backups when I need them. But one of the unique things about the Rubrik protection for SAP HANA is that there's a very good division of responsibility between the backup admin and the basis admin. In this case, the basis admin still maintains some control over the environment. If they need to do a backup of the environment, then they can still do that through their HANA Studio tools. If the backup admin wants to have a backup kickoff, great. The backup admin can kick off a backup of that database using this button here. The backup admin can control the schedule of backups with input from the basis admin using the SLA domain. There you can see the backup is kicking off here. Now, what's nice too is that the basis admin never actually has to come into the Rubrik UI to do their job. From a basis admin perspective, let's hop into HANA Studio. And here, I have HANA Studio open. I'm going to click on my system database here. We'll connect to that environment. And then we'll also look at the backup console. We can see the configuration and notice that backup interval is set to 50 minutes. This is all already set and done. You'll notice the destination type is set to backint. That's because Rubrik, when you apply the SLA domain to the HANA system, we configure this to use backint, which then streams the backup directly to Rubrik, so there's no more using storage on your system to host out those backups. If I look at my backup catalog, we can see that there's the backup that is currently being kicked off right now. And you'll notice right here, this is the name of the backup that's happening. If I, from the basis admin perspective, want to kick off a backup from my side, I can very easily say backup recovery, backup the system database. And that'll go ahead and open up the typical HANA Studio dialog to do a backup of this particular database. There we go. The only thing that I need to do as a basis admin to make this go to Rubrik is change the destination type to backend. That is it. And if I want to change my backup type to say, let's say it's a incremental database backup, great. I'll do an incremental right now. Hit next, hit finish. That is it. Now, I can't do a backup at the moment because I have another backup already running, but that's the expected output you would get because I'm already running a backup right now. Let me refresh this to see if that backup, there we go, it is complete. So let's kick off that backup again. I'll change this to incremental. I'll change this to backint. I'll hit next. I'll hit finish. And that will run now. What's also nice about this is that the basis admin doesn't need to go into Rubrik to do a recovery either. In fact, there are no recovery operations inside of Rubrik with the exception of one, and that is to configure cross-system recovery. In this case, I'll demonstrate a recovery right from the basis from HANA Studio. I'll right-click on my database. I'll hit recover the system database. So here, I'll put in my user ID and password for the environment. We'll turn the system off. And they will be presented with a dialog box on how to do the recovery. And this should all look extremely familiar to the basis admin. Nothing should look out of the ordinary to them at all because it's their tools and their process that they're already familiar with now. So first question you're asked for is, where do you want to recover back to? In this example, I'm going to recover back to the most recent state because I'm going back to the same system with the same database name. But I could have chosen a specific point in time or to recover back to a specific data backup. I'm going to choose search for the backup catalog and backend only because all my backups are in backend, and that's automatically selected there. If I was doing a system copy and I had already done the configuration in Rubrik to enable that, then I would check this box, put in my source system information, and hit next. In this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit next here. And then I'm going to be presented with my list of backups that I can go back to, and you're going to choose the backup that's most appropriate for doing your recovery. Now, in my case, I'm going to choose the most recent backup because that'll be the quickest backup that I can do, which is this on-demand backup that I took a few minutes ago. So click check availability, make sure that that's good. We'll hit next. We'll hit next. This is all set here. We don't have to worry. We don't have to change anything for this particular restore. So I'll hit next here and I'll hit finish. Now, at this point, I'm done. HANA is going to do what it's going to do to recover this database. It's going to recover from that full, and it's going to apply any logs that were in the system that are necessary to bring it back to that most recent state that it knows about. And that's all done through the HANA tools. Okay, recovery is done. So let's close out of this. And now we'll go back into the presentation. So as you've heard today, and as you have probably already experienced yourself, protecting databases is no easy task. And with today's current landscape, it's only getting harder. The good news is, with Rubrik, we provide you everything you need to protect your SAP HANA databases from any threat. Automation with automated discovery and automated protection. Zero trust security to ensure your data is always readily available. Control, which allows you to do your native recovery tools to restore back to the same instance or to a different instance, and allowing you to recover what you need when you need it. Global catalog and management control, keeping all of your catalogs all in one central spot so you can always see you have centralized reporting and centralized management. Rubrik has a lot of experience protecting databases. Rubrik was founded in 2014 and has been only selling for the last 8 years. And in that short amount of time, Rubrik has delivered purpose-built protection for SQL Server, Oracle Database, Mongo, Cassandra, SAP HANA, IBM DB2, and most recently, Amazon Aurora. And we see the trust and belief in these solutions with our momentum. Rubrik is protecting nearly 2 million database objects, with the largest database under protection coming in at an impressive 500 terabytes. Rubrik is protecting over 60,000 databases from our largest customers. We've gained a lot of trust from our customers with their databases. Customers big and small across industries around the globe trust Rubrik to protect their databases. Customers like Weg2B, Estee Lauder, Pampered Chef, and Aaron's companies. So as we start to close things out, I wanted to share a couple of resources that I thought you might find interesting or helpful. The first is an ebook that explores what modern database protection entails, examining the difference between the legacy and modern approach. The second is a longer white paper that takes a look at how to accelerate backup and recovery speeds, protect against ransomware, and really bridge the gap between backup and database administrators related to database protection. For those of you who want to go a little deeper, and maybe even get hands-on, I would highly recommend taking a look at Rubrik Explore. It's a collection of self-guided product tours. There's a tour of both Rubrik for SQL Server and Rubrik for Oracle. For the SQL tour, you'll be guided through assigning SLA domains, configuring log shipping, running a live mount, and even recovering a single item. The Oracle tour is pretty similar, but also enables you to test out our advanced cloning options, which are also pretty powerful. In addition to these resources, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Rubrik if you wanted to learn more. We'd be more than happy to get in touch with you and share how customers are protecting large database environments with Rubrik. They can even provide a personalized demo if that's something that's interesting to you. Lastly, I just wanted to extend a big thank you to everyone who joined us today. I really do appreciate you spending some time with us to learn more about how Rubrik helps with SAP HANA. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Well, thanks to Justin and Chris for putting together a really informative presentation here today, and we really appreciate your time. For those of you who ask questions, we will make sure that the Rubrik team gets those questions so they can follow up with you. And a quick reminder that this is your last chance to grab those handouts before we close the event in a minute or two. Okay, so before we wrap up, we do have that one more piece of business. It is the Amazon gift card prize drawing, and the winner of the $250 Amazon gift card today is Jordan Sayo from Colorado. So congratulations to Jordan Sayo. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik for making this event possible, and thanks as always for attending. That's going to conclude today's event. Have a fantastic rest of your day.